Soka worms. The creative life, in short, is achieved by a constant effort to improve one's thoughts and actions. Or perhaps we could say it is the dynamism involved in this effort. Daisaku Ikeda. I am Gloria Ng. I started chanting and practicing Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism with the SGI in San Francisco in February of 2005. At the time, I was living with my parents, content with continued education classes, and skittish about getting boxed into any one career path. Within months of chanting and receiving my kohanzon, an organic gardening class got me excited about vermiculture. In fact, I took my starter bin home from class and instinctively kept it in my room. Since eggshells offer grit for the worms, I saved some from our meals to crush into pieces for my worm bin. One day, my brother spotted me and asked me about the eggshells. I told him I'd tell him if he didn't tell Mom that the eggshells were for an experiment. What kind of experiment? Well, I told him, showed him, and the next thing I knew, Mom found out and refused to read the literature on worm composting I already had on hand, even in Chinese. Either you move out or the worms move out. That was her ultimatum. No, the worms can't stay in your room. No, they can't live in the backyard. No, I will not read your literature. No, you only have 24 hours. I was incredibly upset. I felt betrayed by my brother. I felt angry at Mom. Shut down. The old tug-of-war between her way or my way reared its head. Faced with the spiral of negative tendencies, I immediately began to chant about my problem. As I chanted, I came to realize that I was practicing Buddhism, which is about the middle way. It wasn't about extremes, giving up or giving in to either person's ways. Buddhism was about victory or defeat. Defeat was falling into that binary way of living that I ached to outgrow. What was victory? I practiced with the SGI, the Soka Gakkai, a value-creating society. Victory was about value creation, so I began to chant about how to create value. In fact, what did I value? As I chanted, the sadness, the agony, the hurt melted away. The problem was never about the worm bin. The worm bin was an opportunity to become clear about what I value, what would truly make me happy. This inner transformation led me to realize what the worm bin stood for me. I wanted to live in harmony with whomever I share a roof. My mother was clearly upset about the worms. I couldn't afford to move out, so I needed to apologize to her and find another home for the worms. As I chanted about who I could call to house the worms, I thought of the next thing I valued: community. Someone whom I could call came to mind. It turned out a scrapbooking photographer had the space, and I even got to teach a worm composting workshop to her 2 middle school daughters. I definitely created community. Finally, the third thing the worm bin illuminated for me was my desire to have a space to continue to grow. I didn't know how that would happen, just that eventually I'd want my own space for me and not just my worms. I was constantly learning about new things, such as rainwater catchment and permaculture. How great it would be to implement such things. Who knew what else I'd learn about as I continued to grow? This last prayer of having space to grow, I thought I fulfilled by only teaching about worm composting at the scrapbooking shop. In hindsight, that very month, I began Byakuren training and met the person with whom I'd buy my kosen-rufu house within a year. I was able to move the worm bin from the scrapbooking shop to my backyard. I've had 3 indoor worm bins, 2 tossed by the same ex, since. Although I entered the foreclosure process once and a pre-foreclosure process twice, exited 2 relationships, birthed 3 children, 2 of whom were born in this house, I have indeed been able to keep growing as a person in this house. Today, I am a single parent who loves her remote work, commutes to her children's schools within minutes, earns sufficient income to support herself and her family, and remains in her house amidst a pandemic, even in a high cost of living area. I feel very fortunate to have kohanzon, to use the strategy of the Lotus Sutra first and foremost, and always return to the question of Soka. What value do I want to create? Just as SGI founder Daisaku Ikeda wrote, you must not for one instant give up your effort to build for yourselves new lives. Creativeness means to push open the heavy, groaning doorway to life. This is not an easy struggle. Indeed, it may be the most difficult task in the world, for opening the door to your own life is in the end more difficult than opening the door to the mysteries of the universe. Opening that doorway, though, is so worth it and beyond what I could have possibly imagined. I will strive to open that doorway ever wider. Thank you.